Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford as usual, and it's a bit brisk to say the least. Now, you'd expect me to be talking about the previous night's game against Liverpool and what went on there and the post-match reaction from that. But you may have guessed or gathered there is no post-match because there was no game. The game was obviously called off because of the protest that took place here yesterday with around anything from, depending on what reports you read, from sort of 4,000 to 10,000 fans coming down to Old Trafford to protest against the Glazers' ownership, not just on the back of the European Super League, as some have claimed, but also ever since they took over, the fact they put us in debt, the fact that there's been a lack of investment, the fact there's no dialogue with the fans, and then yes, the Super League was sort of the icing on the cake, if you will. So lots of fans came down here yesterday. I was amongst them protesting. Some fans got onto the pitch. I wasn't one of them, just to add that, but they did get onto the pitch. The game was called off because it became obvious that it was pretty untenable to try and get the game to go ahead. There was also fans down at the Lowry as well, where Manchester United team were, preventing them, I think, from being able to travel to the ground. So the message was loud and clear that the Glazer family isn't welcome here. The fans are angry. The fans came down here in their, thousands to make that protest, and they did. And this morning, the whole world is talking about it. Now, whether you agree with it or not, the fact of the matter is the protesters had the desired effect. It wanted to get a reaction. It wanted to give a message to the Glazers, and it's done that. I'm just going to go through some of the reaction, because that is all everyone is talking about this morning. As I look over producer Cal's shoulder, I can see news vans and cameras behind me, or behind him, I should say. Over the other side of Old Trafford, there's news there, and, that's why they're here, because of the story about yesterday's protest. On Sky, there was obviously Gary Neville and Roy Keane. They were on there. They were expressing support, actually, for Manchester United fans. You look sort Gary Neville, who's been a bit sort of up and down when it comes to certain things in the past, when he's sort of been a little bit reluctant at times. Some have felt to criticise the Glazers, others have felt he could have said a little bit more, but he's certainly not pulling any punches recently. He was saying that this is a consequence of the Manchester United's owners' actions 2 weeks ago. There is a general distrust and dislike of the owners, but they weren't protesting 2 or 3 weeks ago. So he's kind of right in the sense that we weren't protesting 2 or 3 weeks ago, but we have been protesting since 2005. Now, some people have seen it being said, well, I think it was Graham Souness saying you're protesting because they're not won the league. We were protesting here when the Glazers took over in 2005. Now, we'd won the league 2 years previously to that. In 2010, when it was the Green and Gold campaign, we'd won the Champions League 2 years previously. We were reigning champions, we won the league, I think, in 2011, 2009, 2008, 2007. We've been in the Champions League final in 2009 and 2008 and won it in 2008. So we were literally the most successful club in England whilst we were protesting. So the idea that it's just off the back of what's been going on the football pitch, it's just not true. Some of the things that sort of commentators and pundits have been saying are just so far detached from reality. I don't know what they're talking about. I saw Jermaine Jenas on the telly last night, and he was saying that, the Glazers have invested this and invested that and spent this. I mean, they haven't invested anything. I mean, I don't know what Jermaine Jenas is on about. If he had a thought in his head, it'd be lonely. He's talking rubbish. So, yeah, there's all this sort of myth that the Glazers invested anything. They haven't invested anything into this club, and that is the problem. They've saddled us with all this debt. We're still in lots of debt. I think roughly around 455 million. Forgive me, that figure's wrong. And we've spent, I think I saw a report that for the first sort of 13 years, we spent more on the debt than we did on transfers, the first 13 years of the Glazers' ownership. So this notion that the Glazers invested money, it just simply isn't true. If you spent a penny on Manchester United Football Club, if you spent anything, either watching the game or subscribing or to something or buying any merchandise or anything, if you spent 1 penny on Manchester United, you spent more than the Glazers, because the Glazers haven't spent any of their own money. So yeah, a lot of it is just focused this morning on the on what went on yesterday. And Gary Neville continued. He says there's huge discontent. They're basically saying enough is enough. The Glazers family have been resilient and stubborn for many years. I think they're struggling to meet the financial demands this club needs, and have done for some time. If you think that the club they picked up in 2004, they had the best stadium in the country, probably one of the best in Europe. It isn't anymore, it's falling apart. The best training ground in this country, probably the best training ground in Europe. The team was getting to Champions League semi-finals, quarter-finals and finals regularly, and winning the league every season or every other season. Exactly what I was saying. The ground is falling apart. We've got, you look at the training ground, the training facilities and whatever, everyone goes on about Carrington, but we've got an under-23s team and a women's team that play down in Leigh Sports Village because we haven't got a venue for them. I mean, we're meant to be the biggest club in the world. That's ridiculous, and that just goes to show the lack of investment. And Gary Neville goes on to say that, if you look behind the scenes, the stadium is rusty and rotting. It is. The training ground is probably not even in the top 5 in this country. I mean, I could go on and on, but he's right, and he's he's sort of going on about it. And then Keane as well, who, again, some people say he could say more. Well, he has been saying a lot yesterday. He seems to be so well. He was supportive. He says there's been a build-up in tension, whether it be about ticketing, poor communication, things going in the background. The leadership at the club has not been good enough. When they look at the owners, they feel it's just about making money, because obviously it is. The United fans have looked at the Glazers and thought enough is enough. They're doing it because they love the club. Some people won't agree with it, but sometimes you have to put down a marker, down for the people to take notice. This is true. Anyone that was here yesterday, no matter what you thought about a protest, whether you were for him or against him, they were here because they love Manchester United Football Club. I wanted to come here yesterday. In an ideal world, we would have come here yesterday when fans are allowed in anyway and watch the game, watch Manchester United take on Liverpool. Don't want to have to protest, but you feel like you have to, because these owners just don't care about the football club. And, as been said, the European Super League was the sort of the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. I mean, look, it's not just the fact that they thought they could get away with that. Look at the reaction. Look at the apology from Joel Glazer. The apology that I don't think he's read, let alone wrote. It was just, and he talks about rebuilding trust with the fans. It's ridiculous. I mentioned earlier about the headlines, focusing on it. On the back of the Mirror, it says mutiny, mutiny. United could be docked points and fined as furious fans storm into Old Trafford, forcing their huge clash with Liverpool to be called off. So the Mirror are claiming that we could face some sort of points deduction and as a sort of by way of a sanction from the Premier League. I mean, I don't know how likely that is. It said here, if you just find the article, it goes on to say that the Premier League have launched an investigation into the incident and now querying how over 200 supporters got into the stadium. According to the FA's rule book, it states that United could be found to have been at fault for the match not going ahead and see Liverpool awarded 3 points. So it's saying there the Scousers could get all 3 points. It goes on, in the event of a match being abandoned due to the conduct of one club or its members or supporters, the board has the power to order that the match is not replayed and to award either 1 or 3 points to the club not at fault. It cannot levy a financial penalty due to the conduct of a club. But then it goes on. I'm not going to bore you with all the subsections and section 12, L12 and all this nonsense. But it says with both clubs agreeing, it also goes on to say in the article, with both clubs agreeing to the decision to postpone the match, it remains to be seen whether any sanctions will come into effect. So they're basically saying, well, both Liverpool and Manchester United did agree to that, so who knows. I mean, there's lots of statements doing the rounds this morning. GMP, Great Manchester Police, have issued a statement talking about the protesters and what went on there, what went on there, and it sort of said that officers continue to closely monitor the situation, engaging with those present, but as the groups grew in size, it became clear that many of those present were not intending to exercise their right to peaceful protest. Flares were let off and bottles thrown at officers. Yeah, I've seen some sort of newspapers running with the story, or news outlets saying, officers injured, and that's been their sort of headline, if you will. And listen, I understand that we don't want to see police officers getting hurt, we don't want to see them getting injured, I get that, but there were thousands and thousands of fans here yesterday, and by and large it was a peaceful protest. I think there was 1 or 2 injuries to officers. I'm not condoning that, but I'm saying you've got to look at it in terms of how many people were here and what went down. If it's like 1 or 2 people getting injured, then that is like what, out of thousands, that's like what, 0.1% maybe that were causing any trouble. So bit of perspective, the idea here was to come down and protest, to make a statement, and that was done. And you can argue about whether the people should have done this and should have done that, but the fact is it had the effect that we wanted it to have. The effect was we wanted people to be talking about it, we wanted it to have an impact. We've been protesting here since 2005 and not being listened to, and as I said earlier, the European Super League showed that. It showed that the Glazers don't care about the fans. They've so far sort of detached from reality. It's mind-boggling. And yesterday gave them a real statement of how the fans are unhappy. And you can expect more protests. You can expect it to carry on. I don't think this is going to be the end of it by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think fans came down here, caused the game to be postponed and think, right, that's it, job done. Of course the job's not done. The Glazers are still here, and I think until they sort of start listening to us, until they sell up and move on, until they give us the 50+ model that's been spoken about, you'll see the petition we were tweeting on the Stretford Paddock account as well, then I can expect these protests to continue, because we've seen them here. We saw them here last week as well. We saw them at the training ground. I think this is just going to go on and on and on. There was a club statement by Manchester United following the game yesterday, and it says, following discussion between the police, the Premier League, Trafford Council and the clubs, our match against Liverpool has been postponed due to safety and security considerations around the protests today. Discussions will now take place with the Premier League on a revised date for the fixtures. Yes, so we have to wait and see when we do play Liverpool, if in fact we do, and it's not just awarded to them. I think we will play them, but we'll keep you posted on that one. Our fans are passionate about Manchester United, this is the rest of the statement, and we completely acknowledge the right to free expression and peaceful protest. However, we regret the disruption to the team and actions which put other staff, other fans staff and the police in danger. We thank the police for their support and will assist them in any subsequent investigations. So, I mean, it's a pretty wishy-washy statement, isn't it, from the police there, from the club there. You know, we were sort of the usual things. I found passionate fans and working with the police. I mean, it's kind of what you would expect. I mean, I don't think the club are going to come out and go, you know, well done to the fans. You know, we hate the owners too. They're not going to do that. So, almost meaningless, you could argue there. The police have issued a statement, the club have issued a statement. We've seen former players issuing statements as well and speaking out about it, and you know, everyone's talking about it this morning. It's all over it's all over the front pages, not just the back pages. So it has had that desired effect. The desired effect was to cause an impact, to get the owners to notice us, and hopefully now they will have noticed the fans, and maybe the next step is they'll start listening to us, because this isn't going to go away. The fans aren't just going to sort of say, right now, this is it, job done. They're going to keep protesting, they're going to keep fighting. There's petitions, I said earlier, petitions gone to Parliament. Maybe legislation is the answer, trying to bring about some sort of new legislation. You know, Boris Johnson, I know he talks rubbish, but he promised that he was going to drop a legislative bombshell following the European Super League. Maybe that's something involving the 50+1 model. I know we can't rely on Boris Johnson, but if enough people get behind that idea, if enough people sort of lobby MPs and whatnot and force the issue, then maybe something can be done in Parliament, and we can see a change in the law there, or the change in legislation that brings about that change that we all want and gives fans a voice. There was a fans forum last week. They gave the club sort of a list of demands or requests, whatever you want to say. I think one of them was a seat on the board. It was a dialogue with the club. It was fans to be listened to. It was those sorts of things. You can see that as well on our socials. We've been posting about that. We covered that. I think the club was given 7 days to respond to that. So we'll have to wait and see whether they do. It just goes to show you, though, the contempt that the club had, that on the back of Joel Glazer's apology, that at that fans forum meeting, was any of the Glazer family there? Was he there? No. I think Ed Woodward was on the call, and apparently, according to reports, he looked shocked when he was given this letter by the fans groups. But so he should, because, well, he shouldn't be shocked. He should have expected it, to be honest with you, because, you know, what did he think the fans were going to do? Did he think they were just going to go along with this European Super League idea? Do you think that they're just going to continue to see this club that was challenging for league titles, not just challenging for league titles, winning league titles regularly, challenging for Champions League? Now, you know, not getting in the Champions League every season, with a ground that's falling apart, with, you know, the under-23s playing down the road, with our rivals winning titles, challenging in Europe. You know, you see Manchester City challenging in the Champions League this season. Liverpool not long ago won it. Liverpool, the reigning Premier League champions. City, unfortunately, no matter what, are going to win not no matter what, it's inevitable, really, isn't it? They're going to win the Premier League this season. And Manchester United fans were sat here watching this club that was, when the Glazers took over, one of the most successful in the world, now sort of, you know, miles away from where we used to be, and miles away from our rivals, and it's just not good enough. And it's not just about transfers, and people keep saying, I've seen pundits saying, oh, if you spent money on transfers and you spent loads of money on this, that and the other. It isn't just about that. It's about much more than that. It's about the fans not being listened to. It's about the fact we're still in all this debt. It's about the fact that ground is still crumbling. It's about the fact that you've got owners that just don't care about Manchester United Football Club. All they care about is profits. All they care about is carrying on making money, which is what they've done since they leveraged this club and put us all into that put the club into debt to buy Manchester United. That's all they're bothered about. They're not bothered about the fans. They're not bothered about this football club. And they're not bothered about success and winning trophies. They've shown that time and time again ever since 2005. So just like you saw in 2005, just like you saw in 2010, just like you saw over the past 2 weeks, you can expect to see more protests until the Glazers start listening to us and basically, you know, pack up and sell up even, and move on. But is that going to happen? We'll have to wait and see. But no, one thing is for certain, Manchester United fans are going to continue to protest, going to continue to fight. And at Stretford Paddock, we're going to continue to support that and report on it as well, and bring you all the latest news. We haven't really touched on any transfer news. Do people still bother about transfer news today after what's going on? You probably are, but we'll have updates anyway later on. We've got... we have Premier League P8 with McCullough and Joe, of course, and then we'll have the Paddock Live podcast. So any transfer developments, any developments on this, if we get any news of what the FA are saying or the Premier League about yesterday and whether they are going to take any points off Manchester United, then don't worry, we'll bring out news. It's starting to rain here anyway, so I'm going to wrap this up. I've been Jay Motti. This has been Stretford Paddock Paper Talk. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.